Hello, my name is Lauren, and I'm in the LACC's Digital Media and Graphics class in the second semester in the winter of 2024. Today I'm going through the story of the game Stray, released in July of 2022. I'm creating this informative video to help me learn the skills necessary to create, edit, and publish videos as part of my class. Without further ado, let's get started. Stray was released on July 19th, 2022 to the PS4, PS5, and Windows PC, and created by Blue 12 Studios. It is a cyberpunk after-apocalypse game where the main character is a cat. We play as this cat, not really known by anything else, trying to find his way out of Walled City 99. There are 13 levels that we make our way through, ranging from the bottom of the city all the way to the top. Each chapter is unique in its own way, so let's dive into this story following our furry feline friend. We start our adventure off inside the wall, but outside the city, where we wander around with our cat family. While we are exploring, however, one misstep on a loose pipe sets our entire story in motion. It dislodges, causing us to fall down into the depths of the city. When we wake up, we are injured in a garbage disposal area. Surprisingly, though, there is an open door down the way that leads into the city, which had just recently been opened by something. As the cat enters the next area, the dead city, we are guided through the city with flickering neon signs, and there's cameras that are always pointing at us, watching all of our moves. In this area, there are many decrepit robots and buildings, and it is here that we meet the first threat to our feline friend, the Zurks. These Zurks are genetically mutated bacteria that were created to help with the garbage from when the humans were still here. They evolved into a parasite that feeds off of quite literally anything. Living things, such as our cats and the robots we come across, are all in danger from these Zurks. After running through an infestation of Zurks and then a little bit of exploration later, we make our way into a flat that has been long since forgotten, or so it seems. While there is no living creature, of course, except the cat in the flat, there is a conscious entity that we meet, only known as B12. B12 is a small robot with the ability to hover, translate other languages, and be upgraded at certain points in our story. Once powering up B12, we are equipped with a virtual backpack of sorts, so that B12 is able to stay with us throughout our journey. It also is able to digitize different items, such as keys, postcards, and other valuables. As the cat and their newfound friend leave the flat, we come across something we can collect as well. Memories. More like B12 collects these memories, and we are able to get a deeper understanding of the world we have been plunged into. Once we collect our first memory, which is a postcard of the outside, we make our way to a civilization called the slums. As the name suggests, the slums are where the less fortunate robots live. And before the robots, it was the less fortunate humans. It is here that we learn that the robots, known as companions, were created by humans as a way to liven up their dull existence. Here we meet a very interesting fellow named Momo. We are pointed in his direction by another companion known as the Guardian when we show him the postcard of the outside that we found from B12's first memory. He was part of the group called the Outsiders. The Outsiders were a group that believed that they could make it out of the city and to the earth outside of the city. The group was made up of 4 companions, one of which we already know as Momo, and there's Doc, Zavalcazar, and Clementine. Momo shows the cat his notebook, and in turn tells us that the other 3 also had notebooks in their homes when they were still in the slums. We are able to go find the notebooks, and once retrieving them and returning them to Momo, he tasks us with taking the transceiver to a signal tower, or the tallest tower that we can physically get to in order to try and reach two of the outsiders that left the slums in order to find a way out of the city. Once Momo gives us the transceiver, we head out of his window. B12 and the cat make the treacherous journey to the highest point in the slums, the signal tower. Now, why would it be so treacherous? Well, it's because we have to travel the rooftops to get to it, as well as avoid being killed by the Zerks that infest most of the dead city, including these rooftops. It has to be one of the most panic-inducing parts of this game because of the fact that Zerks lay around every corner. The cat must run, jump, and avoid these Zerks as they try to make their way up to the signal tower. However, once we finish this treacherous task, the cat and B12 are able to ride back to Momo's house in a pail on a pulley system. At least they don't have to make the trek back through the infestation. Once getting back to Momo's house, he is nowhere to be found, but he left a note on the TV telling us to meet him at the bar. He was able to get the transceiver running, but it wasn't the best. We were still able to get a signal and contact Zabaltazar. In Doc's notebook, when Momo was reading through, he saw that Doc had come up with a way to fight the Zerks. So we are sent on a mission to try and find him. We have to find his secret lab, which just so happens to be in his and his son Seamus's apartment. Once finding the lab through a fairly easy puzzle, we find a broken tracker, which needs to be fixed. The cat and B12 head over to another companion's house to see if this tech companion, named Elliot, can fix it. In order to fix it, we are sent on a side quest to find him a poncho. Once we get the poncho and return it to Elliot, he has the tracker fixed. We then return to Seamus with the tracker, and we follow the tracker to our next area outside of the slums to try and find Doc. Seamus can only take us so far with the tracker as he is afraid to go outside of the slums like the rest of the companions. The cat and B12 then set off through more Zerk-infested territory, jumping, crawling, and dashing through to try and keep ourselves safe and alive. Eventually, we make our way to an apartment-style complex with one resident, Doc. We learn that he has been missing because he couldn't figure out a way to get out of the area he got himself into because of research. This is where we learn that he had been working on a device to combat the Zerks, which he calls a defluxer. The problem is that it needs to be powered by a generator, but this generator creates a lot of noise and attracts the Zerks. So we are entrusted in turning on the generator by replacing a fuse and getting it back to the apartment while Doc fends off the Zerks after the defluxer has been powered. Then he tells us that he can attach the defluxer to B12, and he does. We then make our way out of the dead-end area with a few close calls. There, Seamus and Doc are reunited. At this time, we are able to explore the slums for the last time, as once we embark with Momo, we do not come back to the slums. Once we have finished exploring the slums to the best of our ability, we are able to embark with Momo, and we float down the sewers on a raft, making our way through this area until we get to a blast door. Sadly, this is where we leave Momo, as he opens the door enough for the cat and B12 to get through, since he has to manually open it. Once we leave Momo, we are met with an obvious infestation of Zerks. This grotesque sight pervades through the entire chapter. We must dodge and fight the Zerks at every point, all the way up until the climax of the chapter, where we have to run through the twisting end of the sewers, carrying B12 after he short-circuited, trying to save the cat, which got ambushed by Zerks. Once we are out of harm's way, and after our last encounter with the Zerks, we set B12 down, and he thankfully powers back on after being batted at a few times. Once out of the sewers, we make our way to a small refuge called Ant Village. It is the halfway point between the slums, the lower class, and the next chapter that we go to, Midtown, or the middle class. At the very beginning of this chapter, however, B12 is subsequently, the cat, have a massive realization that the humans transferred their consciousness into the companion bots they created. With this, B12 realizes that he had been talking about a scientist, and he thought that he was the scientist's assistant, when in actual reality, his consciousness is the scientist's. Once he realizes this, he needs a minute to process the implications of this memory, as anyone would. We are able to explore, but we aren't able to talk to anyone since B12 is still processing his newest memory. We are able to make our way up the village by climbing various structures, and once we make our way to meet the third member of the Outsiders, Zabaltazar. We see that he seems to have uploaded his consciousness to the internet and has decided to not continue his journey to the outside. He does, however, tell us that Clementine, the fourth member of the Outsiders, currently resides in Midtown and has a plan to get to the outside. He gives us a picture of Clementine with her current address on the back. Once we finish talking with Zabaltazar, B12 says we can either head straight for Midtown or we can explore Ant Village. If we do decide to explore, we are able to talk to the companions again, as well as try to find any collectibles we may have missed. Once finished exploring, we climb up the structure of Ant Village and use another sewer pipe, coincidentally, to make our way up to Midtown. As we make our way out of Ant Village, we make our way to the subway station, which leads us to Midtown. This is the largest chapter in the game, since it's so heavily packed with different objectives as well as enemies around every corner. Our new enemies are Sentinels. They are pretty much the police of Midtown, once created to keep crime low, but is now used for a way for NecoCorp to keep the other companions under their thumb. The main objective is to steal the atomic battery from the NecoCorp factory in order to power the subway. Once we find Clementine in an apartment complex and avoid getting hit with a lamp, she tells us that she has a contact that can help us get into Neco. She gives us his description and a note to give him. When we meet this companion named Blazer, he is set as shady right off the bat. We find him in an alleyway, being very unapproachable, and acting like he tolerates our presence. Nevertheless, he is our way into the factory, so we steal a worker's helmet and a worker's jacket by some trickery and our nimbleness. Once we return the stolen attire to Blazer, he sneaks us in by carrying us in a NecoCorp box. Once out of the box, we are tasked with making our way through the factory without triggering the alarms. Sentinels are everywhere in the factory, so we must dodge, wait, and run past the Sentinels to get to the battery. Once we make our way to the battery room, which is guarded by lasers, we must complete a small puzzle in order to get the battery. Once we take the battery, the factory goes on lockdown, and we get out of there as quickly as possible. We make our way back to the apartment complex to find that the Sentinels have shut it down to the public. Since we are small, we are able to sneak right into the complex and make our way past the Sentinels and into Clementine's apartment. She, however, is nowhere to be found. She left us a note just directing us to her objects to find out what the note is. The note reads, "I'm with Blazer, come to nightclub." As instructed, we make our way back out of the apartment complex into the nightclub, which we have to get into through a window. We then make our way to the VIP section to find that Blazer has betrayed both Clementine and the cat, as he has turned us over to the Sentinels. This chapter ends with the Sentinels electrocuting the cat, causing us to black out. We wake up an unknown amount of time later in a small cage that's hanging by a single chain. We are able to use our momentum to bang the cage against a nearby pipe, causing it to open. We then make our way out of the cell, and we are able to find Clementine in another cell block. It is to note that the jail is not a good place to be. Companions get rebooted, they serve insanely long sentences, and are terrified of the Sentinels. We get her the keys and she's able to open the door and we are able to escape. Before we can, though, the cat spots B12, who is heavily guarded by sentinels. Clementine and the cat go to save B12, but it's too risky for Clementine to help, so we are tasked with turning off the security with the exception of the sentinels and grabbing B12 and running back to Clementine. Once B12 starts up again, we are able to make our way out of the jail. We do have to lure and dodge sentinels so Clementine is able to escape as well, but once that's all said and done, we escape on a vehicle and Clementine takes us to the subway. But she tells us that we have to go on without her. We are also told that we are now a member of the Outsiders. She says she'll keep the sentinels busy and let us escape. She then runs and leaves us to make our way to the outside. We power the subway and make our way to the top of the city. As we exit the subway, we are met with the cleanest and nicest looking area we have seen. The companions up here are just regular robots doing what they were programmed to do. We make our way through the top level and to the doors to the outside, which are locked. So we are able to find the control room in order to unlock the city. We are tasked with destroying the different systems while B12 hacks into the system in order to unlock the city. By the end of it, however, and bringing B12 to the workstation, B12 short circuits and the little robot turned off and effectively dies in the process. The cat lays with B12 for a while before heading out of the control room and to the now unlocked doors. We exit the city into a tunnel that hasn't been used in years. As we leave, the cat looks back one last time before turning and walking away. In the last shot, we get a glimpse of old technology rebooting, hinting that B12 may still be alive in the systems of the city. If you liked this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and take a look at the rest of our student-created videos. If you're interested in this class, please be sure to reach out to the Livingston Area Career Center. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.